Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to look at our professional service operations solution for Monday.com. Just going to close my window. Sorry about that. So, we're going to look at our professional service operations solution for Monday.com today. This solution primarily targets organizations that works in a set amount of hours, result, or money over a consecutive amount of days, month, or weeks. So really your professional service operations, SEO agencies, some marketing organizations, you could have lead generation tools, so on and so forth. So very, very critical to understand that we're not running traditional projects in this solution. We know exactly what we need to deliver for every client because our offering is quite straightforward. Our contract is based on a starting fee, X amount of volume per month, and this is the amount of month that we're going to be working together. We built it in the Monday CRM to make sure that we always have all the client communication built in, and we also have put the whole lead operations opportunity workflow in the beginning as well. So I'm going to take you through it chronologically. So we're going to start with the leads. I'm not going to bore you with entering a bunch of details, but I'm going to talk you through what we have here. So we have a leads board. We kept it very simple as a default from a template perspective, so you can add whatever information you feel is relevant for you guys to have in your leads, of course. But in this case, we have the name of the lead, who's the sales reps, what kind of status, assigned, attempted to contact, contacted, qualified, and unqualified. Once qualified, for example, it will create a company in a contact registry and then move over to the opportunities where we'll do the bulk of the operations. What company are we dealing with? Phone number, email, homepage, standard stuff. And of course, when we open up the lead, we get a nice little lead card with the lead stage. We get our emails and activities where we can add activities. We can track all our emails and sync everything. And we get all the information we need basically on one screen. Super nifty. This is basic Monday CRM functionality. As again, once qualified, it moves over to the opportunities. And this is really where we start seeing a difference between this solution and other ways of working. So let's collapse the left menu so we see a lot more stuff on the screen. Grouping here, you can group it in any order you want. New opportunity in progress on one is currently what we're doing. We like to keep the one opportunities in our opportunity board to make reporting a bit easier. But you can also have a separate board for won and disqualified opportunities. We track the sales rep, expected close date. We have a link to our contacts, to the company. We follow up on the stage of the opportunity. So is it a qualified? Are we doing analysis? Has it been validated? Proposal, negotiation, contract sent, won, disqualified, and lost. Contract sent is an interesting one. In the default setup, this is just a status to make sure that you know that you have sent a contract, but we can go as far and help you to integrate Monday to any preferred e-signing service. So by just clicking on contract sent, there will actually be a contract sent that will be signed in the e-signing service. And then once signed, it can get uploaded into Monday. So you have everything in your CRM. Usually with these kind of organizations, there's some kind of starting fee, right? We have a starting fee for a workshop or exploratory or to understand your challenges. If it's a recruitment company, this would be to understand the profile of the candidates, for example. We added, just from a template perspective, the ability to track different type of projects. In this example, we're just using small, medium, big, just to show you some examples, but this can be anything. And now here's the real value of this. So we have the volume per month. In this example, we're doing hours, but this could be result. This could be X amount of leads. This could be X amount of meetings. This could also be a fixed cost. So $5,000 a month. and then how many months will this contract span for. In this first example here, we'll be working 10 hours a month for 2 months with the hourly rate $250. This will give us a value. Behind the scenes in the main table, we of course have a forecasted value that uses the deal stage. So let's jump in and see that. So based on the deal stage, you can get an automatic probability, and that of course can give you a forecast value. So if you want to do your dashboarding based on the forecast instead of the actual value, you have those options. Again, just like in the leads, we have a nice little item card that shows us the deal stage. It shows us our different values. We have our emails and activities and all the information we need. And we can, of course, also modify the information from here. So I just talked to these guys, and we're going to do 15 hours a month instead of 10. And the deal value went up. This has also now gone into a proposal stage, which in turn will reflect on the probability and so on. And it's moving down into the closing group. We can help you enhance this further. A lot of our clients uses a product library. Then we normally use the sub items to specify what kind of products or offerings would be included in this deal. So there's a lot of additional options, but from a basic perspective, we wanted to keep it quite straightforward. So this is the bare minimum of what we need to make this work. Of course, we're going to be closing a bunch of deals. So once this is won, it will then move over to our project staging area. Our project staging area is where all our projects live. We have someone who's responsible. We'll have a status on the actual project. We'll have a timeline when it was meant to be run. We also, again, have our months and projected hours. Based on the plan that we then do, we will get a feedback loop here. How many hours have we actually planned? And now we can see that we have overplanned 30 hours for project 1, and we overplanned 5 hours for project 2. Might be totally right, but at least I want that information. And by using Monday Basic conditional coloring, we're making sure that the whole row is red to indicate that we're not looking at a 0 value here. Okay. Once we have a view of our project over here, that's the time when we actually move into planning out the project. So let's jump straight into our planning board. The planning board uses Monday Time Reporting solution for the planning aspect of this. We can see the company, the project, the role, any notes that we want to have. We can add additional rows by selecting our company, selecting the relevant project that's actually linked to this. We can then specify the role that we want to work with and add that to the list. From here, we can easily allocate the hours that we previously discussed. So for project 5, we need to add some senior developers and some senior techs. So let's make sure that we add 5 hours here and we add 5 hours here. That will, of course, revert back. So when we look at project 5 over in the projects area, we will now see that we have 10 hours more. What we do initially, I don't know if you noticed that, but we actually only work on role, and there's a big reason for this, because we want to plan out our roles or skill sets that is needed for the project first, so we can validate that we can actually execute on this plan before we go into the hassle of assigning individuals to the work. Again, it's quite straightforward, like any other table. You just fill out the numbers. You can then also, if you need to, you can easily push. For example, these hours here, if I want to push them by 1 month, then I need to delete the 10. I need to write 10 here, and then I need to write 15 over here. I can easily go in and just change the status to push 1 month, and both numbers will be moved. And that's all set up again with Monday native automations. So we really try to leverage Monday's native functionality and then just connect it with our time reporting solution in order to get this professional service optimized operations solution. So we've done our plan. We think we're done. Let's validate the plan, right? So we go into our role workload. In our role workload, we actually just check the roles, and we can see that I actually have more capacity than I've planned out. So this is good. I don't have any bottlenecks. I don't have any issues other than the fact that I have staffers that are not working this month. That's another thing. I can also easily see that for July and August, I have more capacity for my senior techs. This can also take all their absence into account, so that reflects automatically in this capacity. So I validated now, I can do my plan, right? So I don't need to redo my plan. Otherwise, I'll just work backwards and make the changes necessarily over here. So now I can start assigning individuals to my actual work items. And the work items would be the amount of hours I've allocated per each month for the project and the role. I can do that in a few different views. So we have prepared a role view, a company view, a date view, and a project. So let's start looking at the role and skill view. So the role and skill view uses the group by functionality and groups it by the role column. So now we can see all our junior recruitment consultancy work in one list, and we can see our junior tech work in one list, and we can see our senior tech work in one list. And as you can see, I have a few items down here that are not assigned. So I can go ahead and assign them to Jasan, either by going in individually like this, or multi-selection and assigning them to Jasan, like that. Same thing, if I look at this from a client perspective, everything is grouped by client. A lot of you probably want to check this by project. So you have all the different roles within the project grouped at once, so we can see how our projects are stacked. But one of my favorite ones is actually the date view, because I can have, this is basically my priority order. Everything that's due this week or next week, I really need to make sure that it's staffed. Same with this month, but I can then be more lax with future dates and assign as we go. I don't have a big urgency to assign individuals because I've already, in the role workload, made sure that we can do the work with the skill sets and personnel I have. Once I've assigned, either through the role, company, date, or project tab, I can then look at my individual workload. So now we're looking at this, but with an individual focus, where I can see, again, nobody's overworked really well. Perfect. I do still see a bunch of gaps, so I can also communicate this to my sales team and try to get them to get some more work for these personnel over here. A good tip, if you go to your profile, there's a section called title. If you fill out your title, it actually shows up under your name in the workload widget. So that way you can also easily work with your skills and your team. In this example, with only 4 people, it's not a problem. But let's say you have 20, 30, 50, 100 resources. You probably don't know exactly what role each of them are. So that's a nice little thing. Okay. We covered the lead, the opportunity, the project staging area. We went into planning. We checked the role capacity. We assigned the individual. We checked in individual workload. Again, just jumping back to show you how we're doing on the project front. Now I have the 10 extra hours down here, so it's red. Okay. Doing the work. So I can find my work either on the main table, and I can filter on myself, of course. Now I can see what I'm working on and so on. I could also go into my work, where I'll have all the assigned items to me, and this becomes a really good way of working. So obviously this is a demo account, so some past dates, and later this week, this is what the options I have. I can mark them as done and they go away. So we have a few different options for that. And of course, if you are one of those that work in your calendar, you can sync this to your calendar as well. Once we've done the work, we then have the ability, if you're an organization that work that way, to actually start doing time reporting as well. I'm currently in here as a manager. That's why I see all the people, but I can also filter and just myself. I'm working on the following 2 projects, and I can at any time just add additional 2 hours here, 2 hours there, 4, and 8 hours. And let's give it that 8 hour over here as well. Perfect, no problems at all. I can then say, you know what, let's submit these for approval, and they will then show up in my time approval tab for ready for review, where you can review this either by month or by week. And once approved, all good. Of course, I want to make sure that people have entered all their time, and filtering on every individual in this view is not optimal. So what I do is I go into report overview, again, utilizing a nice little workload widget. I can then make sure that people have the 40-hour checkbox on them. That's how I know that they've reported a full work week. Same as before, we can make sure that absence gets included here as well, so they don't need to report that. The easiest way to include absence this Monday is to actually set up an absence board. You can either have it with a form, so they can apply straight into Monday. You can just have it as a data dump, and you can also integrate it to any HR system that you use. But in the end, what is it, who is it, time period, and how many hours absence, and then that will be reflected back into the workload widget. No solution would be complete without some nice little dashboards. So we have a sales dashboard. We try to keep it rather simple because we know most organizations has their own ways of reporting. So we just wanted to make sure that we have some basics in here for you. But from an opportunity perspective, we have average value of one opportunity, total forecasted value, total value won this month, a nice little funnel chart to show how the deals are actually progressing through the different stages, forecasted value per rep, forecasted value per month, our sales pipeline, value won per month, and then we also have some lead generation and so on as well. Going on, we also, of course, have an operations dashboard. So this operations dashboard has a few nice little widgets. One of them would be our projected hours versus planned hours. So this is where we can check to make sure that we are not over planning. This is another high level report, compares the planned versus the project hours. So we can clearly see in project 1 that we have planned too many hours versus what we actually contracted. We can see the average contract length, 3.75 months. Of course, we want to get this as high as possible. Once we have done the plan and we started reporting, we can also see how are we reporting versus the plan. So if it was even, I had 50 hours planned, I've reported 50 hours, then it would show up as 0. So these are underreported, probably already in progress, and these projects have been overreported, meaning that we probably had to do a lot of extra work for some reason. And we can also see a nice little line diagram over planned revenue per month. And at any level, you can put in whatever target suits your organization, of course. This one down here is one of my favorite ones. It's showing the planned versus reported. So if you're an organization that invoice based on fixed fee, then you basically are seeing your margins here. If you, on the other hand, is an organization that invoice based on time reported, you see that you still have a bit of work to do to achieve your potential invoice. And invoice over time overview as well. All of this invoicing information comes from the invoicing board, which can be auto-populated either from the plan or from the timesheet. So all of these entries here would be automatic. You won't have to go in there and create all your invoicing lines. So bear that in mind. You have a choice. Do I want to invoice based on what I planned, or do I want to invoice based on the time reported? Either way, we can automate it natively in Monday, so it pushes straight to this invoicing board for you later on with aggregated amount of hours per project per company. We have a few little views here. We have our default view with upcoming invoices, and then invoices sent. We can look at this from a date perspective, so we can see what's due next week, next month, and so on. Or we can check this from a company perspective to see how our company is actually performing based on invoices paid and sent and so on. So if we go to the main table, again, we have all the information we need. Who was the agent? What was the company, the project, the date for the invoice, hourly fee, hours, and amount. We can, of course, make sure to help you to integrate this straight into your bookkeeping software. QuickBooks, Xero, Fort Knox, Dynamics, doesn't really matter. So you can have these sent automatically to your invoicing/bookkeeping software as draft invoices instead. But from the basic, what you get in the template, this is just a list for you, and then you need to go and raise your invoice on your own. But we can help you with that enhancement. Just checking the chat to see if there's any questions. Yeah, the UK is enjoying their one heat wave day. We also have a nice little heat wave over here in Sweden. We're at 28 degrees, so I'm so happy to be working today. Let's do a quick little recap. Leads, opportunities with start fee, volume per month, amount of months. We go into a project staging area. We plan out the work on a role basis, month by month. We then check from a role perspective, do we have the capacity to execute on the plan? We go into one of the other views to assign the individual consultant or agent. We can then check their individual workload. We go into my work to do our work. We can then go and time report our entries. And after that, we go to the invoicing board. That's really it. What we're doing here is we're leveraging the Monday CRM with built-in automations, and then we're just adding the Omnitas time reporting solution on top of that. This solution is available as an install link to your account. If you're one of our clients, you get it for free. Otherwise, we'll make some kind of good deal for you. But yeah, it's available. It can be installed. It can start being used straight away. Also wanted to share with you, if you go to omnitas.com, can't spell. If you go to omnitas.com and then you go to solutions, you're going to find this solution down here, Professional Service Operations Suite. You'll find a bit more information about the product, about the solution, how it works, a nice little intro video. You'll have some promotional material. But also what I wanted to highlight down here is what kind of add-ons can we provide? And these add-ons are paid. Like it's a professional service job to implement them for you. But we have our social media suite where we can help you integrate your monday.com to handle all your social media scheduling and content production with a single platform. We have the OmniCloud solution that helps you integrate Monday to Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox. So as soon as a client is created in Monday, we can also create a client folder or even a project folder for that project or that client in your Drive environment. We have the Omni Enricher, which is a really nice little thing. It's actually an OpenAI script that we have built. So you browse, you go to any website that has company information. You have a Chrome extension, you press on that Chrome extension, and the company information will be pushed straight into your monday.com as a lead. And then later on, you can just press a button if you want to enrich that data. And the cool thing is we're using AI to read a web page. So it actually is not a scraper. We don't read the code of the page. It's reading the page like a normal user and then just fetching the data that you want, revenue, amount of employees, and so on and so forth. And that's why it's work with any single page. It doesn't have to be a specific one. One of my favorite ones, I'm horrible at social media. So without the outreach helper, I would be totally lost. So this is something we built in monday.com with the help of AI. So it takes the LinkedIn profile of the person. It checks the industry of the company, the geography, and the market. And then based on your offering, it actually sends a question to OpenAI where it works as a BDR for you, and it gives you back common challenges for this persona, for this industry, for this use case, for this geography, with suggested solutions. So the outreach helper really helps you build all of that. It helps you with basically by being a BDR inside of your account. We have the meeting assistant. So once you finish a Google Meet, a Teams, or a Zoom meeting, through AI, we can summarize the call and put it back into your Monday CRM. So you can have that as an event in your emails and activities flow. And as I mentioned earlier, we can help you with contract generation as well. And of course, email integration and bookkeeping integration as well. So that was our professional service operations webinar. Quite straightforward, very simple, but super powerful. A lot of nice little add-ons that we can do on top of it as well. I see I have no questions in the chat, so it must have been super clear. With that, I want to wish all of you a nice summer. Enjoy the sun. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow us everywhere. Sign up for our newsletter and so on and so forth. Have a lovely rest of the day, everyone.